Welcome to our celebration of our good friend, leader extraordinaire, stalwart paladin, education guru, passionate advocate for equity, in short, our hero, Dick Riley. A Greenville native and proud paladin, Dick Riley was a 1954 cum laude graduate of Furman. His influence has been felt all around the state and across the nation. He served in the State House from 1963 to 1997, was governor of South Carolina from 1979 to 1987, and was U.S. Secretary of Education from 1993 to 2001. An inspiration to many, he is widely considered to be one of the greatest statesmen in U.S. history. Moreover, he's someone who gets things done. His policy achievements are many and substantial, leaving a positive impact on his constituents over the decades. He is a hero not only because of his principled leadership, but also because of his warmth and friendship that he freely offers to anyone he meets. Everyone he knows he considers a friend, a good friend, or a very good friend. I dare you to go ask him tonight which one you are. Secretary Riley is another sign of how you continue to bring people together and inspire them. We have a number of folks who traveled from D.C. and even further away to be here tonight in honor of you, their former boss and years-long friend. If you served in the U.S. Department of Education with Secretary Riley, would you please stand? Oh, wow. We're so glad you're here. Tonight, we're also celebrating the 20th anniversary of Dick Riley's legacy at Furman, the Riley Institute. The Riley Institute, which is an important part of the Furman Advantage, has long been both an inward and outward-facing institute, putting Furman in the very best light across the state and beyond through symposia, leadership award celebrations, public education research, and diversity leadership programs offered in the upstate, Midlands, and Low Country. Here on Furman's campus, the Institute has offered leadership development opportunities for incoming freshman students who are scholarship recipients, for high school students who want to make a difference in their communities, for South Carolina teachers of government, and for policy fellows from across the nation that are seeking to further policies that support after-school programs clearly shown to improve outcomes among vulnerable populations. Many of you in this room know the Institute best by the policy programs it presents and through interactions with visiting fellows and residents and high-profile speakers who share their experience, not only in public events, but also in the classroom, over lunch with students, and in other small group gatherings. It's remarkable just to consider how wide and far-reaching has been the impact of Dick Riley's 6 decades of principled leadership and the first 20 years of the Riley Institute. Tonight, we'll hear from folks who worked with Secretary Riley in the U.S. Department of Education, folks who worked with him when he was governor of South Carolina, and folks who have benefited from his legacy, the Riley Institute at Furman. There are so many who have personal stories to share, and I'm thrilled that we'll get to hear a few of those tonight. We begin tonight with a look back at his official career in public service, both as governor of South Carolina and as United States Secretary of Education. With me here on the stage are 2 men who have served with Dick for many years. Terry Peterson has been working with Dick Riley for nearly half a century. I just read it, I don't write it. He served as Chief Education Counsel when Dick was governor, and then again when he was Secretary of Education. Among the successful initiatives he helped launch are 21st Century Community Learning Centers, early childhood growth programs, family engagement strategies, teacher quality and recruitment enhancements, and school community business partnerships. Currently, Terry serves as the co-chair of the National After School Alliance and is one of the most sought-after voices in the field of after-school and expanded learning policy. So much so that Dick often calls him the king of after-school. Frank Holleman, who is a 1976 graduate of Furman University, was initially Secretary Riley's Chief of Staff at the Department of Education, and then later his Deputy Director. Since that time, he has remained a strong advocate for early childhood education, K-12 public education, and higher education. He helped to start South Carolina's First Steps, chaired Success by Six, and chaired Graduate Greenville, and has advised several university organizations, including the Riley Institute. He was the Democratic nominee for State Superintendent of Education in 2010. He also has tapped into his lifetime passion for conservationism and now serves as a senior attorney at the Southern Environmental Law Center. Before I turn the program over to these gentlemen, I'd just like to say to Dick that I enjoy working alongside you as you serve as an emeritus member of the Furman Board of Trustees. I've been inspired by your integrity, work ethic, and leadership. And I thank you for the ways you have demonstrated principled leadership, not only in public office, but also here with the Greenville and Furman communities. It's an honor and a privilege to know you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Davis. The role that Terry Peterson and I play tonight is not to talk, but to ask. And we're here to stimulate the former governor, former secretary, former so many things, and the current, our current hero, as usual, to tell us some of the stories of his life and career. So let me kick it off, Dick. Our old friend Harry Chapman often says that before you can become a statesman, first you've got to be a politician and get elected. And as the president alluded to, I failed at that task myself. So why don't you tell us how you started with 4% and became the governor of South Carolina?
Well, you won in the primary. That's halfway there.
Very good.
I had, they asked me to tell a story or so about my campaign. As Frank said, I had, and I'm so proud to be with both of them, by the way. Frank said that I had 4% in the polls, and that's true. I had zero money, and I was kind of a reformer in the state Senate, and I thought I had a pretty good shot. We got along to this period where the former, the current lieutenant governor had 36% in the polls, and I was at 4%. So I was going to everything they had that was free. And they had an apple festival up in Oconee, and Frank was probably there. He was one of my head people in Oconee County, and he was a Furman student then, either at Harvard. And anyhow, it was an apple festival, and it was just like it is today. It was 100 degrees. And everybody was sweating, and we were all having a good time or whatever. And I was trying to meet as many people as I could, and this lady came over to me and said, you dance? I said, yeah. And she was a real heavy woman. So with all the heat, she was really sweating a lot. I was too. We were all sweating. And so anyhow, we got out there and we were square dancing, and I did the best I could, and she kind of led me, but I followed well. But when we finished, she came over and we were holding hands, both of us really wet hands. And she said, "You're Dick Riley, right?" I said, "Yeah." "And you running for governor?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, ain't you little?" Now, how would you answer that? So anyhow, I said, "Yeah, I sure am little, but I'm tough as hell." And she said, "Well, I'm going to be for you." Said, "We need somebody down there that's tough as hell." And she said, "And you can really dance." And she was for me. I'm for it the whole time.
Well, Terry, before you jump in, let me say that my wife Ann and I know who that was, and we knew her, but Dick promised me not to call her.
No, don't you tell.
Governor, you had sort of an easy second election for governor, but instead of coasting, you got into a really new big fight, and you really did a great job in building support and passing and funding the Education Improvement Act, called the EIA. And a recent study found that it was the most comprehensive education package in the country. A new Harvard study found that it had a lasting impact for 20 years on improved achievement in the state, actually putting the state in some of the largest gains in achievement until about 2006, over 20 years. A lot of people in the audience helped pass that and build that, and we probably could spend all night talking about the specifics, but we're not going to do that. There's a handout in the back you can get that talks about the successes of the EIA, the innovation, but also all the other things the governor did in education and at the U.S. Department of Education. But here, too, I think it would be really instructive, for the record, to tell a little bit about how hard it was to build support for and how your toughness came through, or we would not have had the EIA.
Well, and I thank you for the for the question. The Education Improvement Act, EIA, was really what I was about most proud of in anything I ever got into. I was determined to have a major education move, and just going into my second term. And what we did, first of all, is I put together a task force with about 35 people. Terry, of course, was there. And then the superintendent of education, Charlie Williams, was the co-chair, and the two of us chaired this task force. It was a very broad-based task force, the way I've always done things. We had Democrats, Republicans, we had independents, we had teachers, we had principals, we had business people, parents, and whatever. Very good group. They worked for the plan, the assigned for them was to come up with a very meaningful, broad-based reform for education. Big, think big, don't think small. So they went to work. They worked for about a year. They had all kinds of subcommittees and committees, and they brought in all the experts from all over the country or whatever. They came out with a plan then, and that was what we were going to work on. So we set up a forum to do that. We had, first of all, like 6 meetings, which were rallies. The first one was in Charleston. All 6 of them were in our major cities. All 6 of them had 2,000, 3,000 people. I mean, it was really something going. I spoke as governor. Charlie Williams spoke. A teacher, very qualified teacher, spoke. A very well thought of business person spoke, and maybe a student. Then we moved out into rooms. We usually had them in big high schools. We had so many people with about 25 to a room. And we had a leader in every room. And that person was familiar with all the things. They had 10 points. They had to respond to all 10. Then they had real heated discussion. What are we going to do about this? How much is it going to cost? Cost too much? Whatever. Then the last question is, how are we going to pay for it? All these things you've recommended to do, pay for it. Computers were just in then, but we computerized every meeting. And that came down to the front office, and so we had a complete feeling. Say in Charleston, we knew exactly what the low country people thought. And then all of the people's view of things came back on the computer. And then that was advertised all over the country. Again, that just whipped up people. Then we went to Florence, and then Greenville, and then Rock Hill, and then Aiken, and so forth. I went on TV 2 or 3 times live for like a half hour. ETV was very helpful. We had bumper stickers. Our main bumper sticker was the main idea for funding was a penny sales tax. And the bumper sticker said a penny for their thoughts, their underlined, meaning the children, of course. Anyhow, we did all of that. We went all around. Everybody on the street was talking about it. We had members of the House and Senate were very hesitant about the penny. I'm very fortunate David Wilkins was a supporter. But anyhow, we had a very interesting go at it. And I was so pleased, Terry, when the time came, we debated it. David, I think some 12, 13 weeks in the House, sometimes all night, sometimes all weekend. We had these 60 programs that we were putting out there, and everybody was into it. Every legislator had that many telephone calls they had to make that day. And the balcony was full, the place was full, and everybody was into it. And it was the most exciting thing in the world. And it's what I've called a movement. And I don't know but we don't need another one. But I'll tell you that to have a movement, I'm trying to make this point, I'm sorry I went so long, but to make this point that a movement doesn't just happen. You have to work at it. You have to get everybody involved. And we did that, and everybody's participated, and everybody should be very happy about it.
Dick, you visited so many schools that one day we came back and his hand was bleeding from shaking so many hands. He had good friends, very, very good friends, and very, very good friends. But also occasionally he would go in and interact with the students. You know, with TV cameras, students, that's a little risky. You might tell them about a little event in Darlington.
Yeah, I was down, Tucky and I, over about a year and a half, went to over 500 schools. And we would go to 2 or 3 a day separately, but covering every school we could, just about all of them. And I was down a little country elementary school in Darlington County. And when the governor comes in, first time the governor had ever been in that region, must mention the school. And they have little tiny chairs, and you have to go with about the 2nd grade. And I would go back and sit in the back of the room and let the teacher teach for a few minutes. And then I would get up and respond. And the teacher knew that. And they had, of course, highway patrol outside, and the kids were all looking at all the police or whatever, security. So anyhow, I went back and sat down. This teacher got up. She was talking about math. And she was telling about something about math. And then she said, we have the governor's here today to be here with you all, and I want to ask him if he'd say a word with you. So I come around, and I said, you know, you've got a wonderful teacher. Everybody like your teacher? Yeah, we like your teacher. And I said, math is very important. I use it every day in the governor's office. If any of you have elected governor, you better really pay attention to know what's happening. And I said, I wanted to get a little interaction from the students. And I said, my office is in Columbia. Any of you all ever been to Columbia? This little guy raised his hand. I said, yeah, when did you go to Columbia? He said, well, Governor, he said, my mama and daddy and I went to see Carolina play about 3 weeks ago, and said, I didn't see much about Columbia because after the game, Carolina lost, Daddy got drunk, and we had to bring him straight home. Now, the problem is the TV was on this guy the whole time he said that. And I told the TV people, I said, please don't run that for his daddy's benefit. But that's the kind of thing you get into if you have young children around, I'll tell you.
Well, Dick, let's turn for a minute to your time as a U.S. Secretary. I remember when I came to work for you in 1993, 4. You said, now, we had a very busy year in 1993. We enacted a lot of new laws. And in the next year or two, it's going to be very quiet. We're just going to be implementing. All we're going to be doing is implementing these new laws. So all we have to do is implement what we've done. And then in November of 1994, we had one of the most consequential elections in American history. And that is, in a tremendous torrential landslide, Newt Gingrich was elected Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, and his number one priority was to abolish the department of which you were the secretary. Ironically, or not ironically, I guess consequentially, like the election, 2 years later, after all that, the national role in education and the existence of the U.S. Department of Education was firmly established and has never really been questioned since. So can you tell us something about how, as the leader of that department, where the national government majority was committed to abolish your department, you actually ended up leading that department and the national role to a firmer footing than it had ever had in the past?
Well, that was a real tough time for us. Not only was the department up, but my job was up also. But we had a real tough time, and all of you that were paying attention at that time to it, it was really a tough era for us, especially Democrats who were in office. And I was so convinced that education should be a national priority. And they decided to develop it as a cabinet official when Jimmy Carter was president. And I felt very good about that, and then Clinton had me come up and serve in that position. So I handled that, and Terry was with me. Frank went with the Justice Department, then came over with education, and ended up my chief of staff. But we handled that just like we handled the EIA, and just like I handled my poor politics. But we had all over the country, we were making speeches. I know Terry was all over, we were all over the country making speeches, fighting for the education priority in this country. And what I used to tell people, and frankly they listened, I said, you know, when you send me to the cabinet meeting as your Secretary of Education, you are there with me. So you can rest assured, if I'm your secretary and I'm in the cabinet meeting, you're in that cabinet meeting too. People like that idea of being connected with education with what was happening, the main cabinet source in Washington. As you well know, we won that effort, and I'm happy to say the Education Department is still in existence in Washington.
Well, applause. Well, Dick, of course, part of your tenure was that you and the president, Bill Clinton, had been elected governors at the same time, were both education governors, and you had a very close relationship with him. And it's well known now, I think, that you were offered a position on the United States Supreme Court. And I think it's pretty safe to say you're one of the few who ever turned it down. And I bet everyone in the audience would love to hear the backstory of that event.
Well, that was a short story. I had Bill Clinton, there was some talk about, there was an opening, and of course the press was covering whatever. My name had been mentioned among 8 or 10 other people in the press. I had no earthly idea of being a serious contestant. Bill Clinton called me, he was in Chicago, I think, called me and said, I want to send your name over for the Supreme Court. Well, I mean, I could have fallen out of my chair. And I said, well, I'm very surprised at that, and I do appreciate it. And he said, I want you to think about it, and let's talk first thing in the morning. So we'll talk around like 9 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, that's fine. And I said, are you sure you want to send my name? He said, yeah, I'm absolutely positive. And I said, I've never been a judge. He said, I've got hundreds and hundreds of judges that are very qualified. I want somebody who I think can convince people, is a leader, and that's what I think you are. I said, well, and I'm very grateful for that. Anyhow, I talked to all of my family. My father was a fine lawyer, and brother, and then Claude Scarborough, who was the head of my firm that I had left, and Steve Morrison, who's a wonderful lawyer and good friends of mine. And they all said, you know, Dick, do it, go ahead and do it. I said, well, you know, I love what I'm doing. I love being Secretary of Education. And I have pulled in people from all over the country, the very top educators in the country. I mean, people, anybody would love to have working for them. I had like 12 of them that were serving in the department, and the department had been pushed over for years, and we were really making a strong department out of it, and I was very proud of that. Anyhow, I talked to Bill Clinton the next day. Tunky told me to do what I thought was right. Bill Clinton said, well, what have you decided? I said, well, I'm very honored. I'll have some thoughts about it right on, but I just want you to know I want to stay where I am. I'm into education. I'm into what I'm doing. I'm a people person and not a brief reader. And that's the difference of what the job I was doing and what it would be. I love the law. I love the practice of law. And I enjoy reading a good brief. However, I didn't want to do that all day, every day, all week. But anyhow, that wasn't really the reason. The reason is I felt like I could do more good than what I was doing.
Well, who was on the Supreme Court instead of you?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And by the way, that was a very good choice. She was a very good justice.
Now, if you had reached another decision, there might be a movie out now called RWR instead.
Well, if this isn't enough thinking about preserving the department, improving education across the country, some of you might be shocked that Dick was actually deployed in international relations. And he helped work on education issues in Ireland, China, Japan, Singapore, Brazil, Chile, to just name a few. And I'd be curious, Dick, kind of what are some of the things that happened in that regard?
Well, I was at a summit meeting in Brazil, and the president was Cardoso, and the Secretary of Education was Paulo Renato from Brazil. And President Clinton was there, Madeleine Albright. There were probably about 20, 25 people. It was a big education meeting. And my time came to speak, and I said, you know, this is an international meeting, but I use this term, and I'm going to use it today, but I want to ask Madeleine Albright if it's all right with her. And they said, what is your term? I said, I use the term education diplomacy. She said, Dick, go right ahead and use it. That's perfectly all right. She was Secretary of State. And then that's what I talked about. I said, you know, education is the one subject, just about everything internationally that people deal with, trade or whatever, is perceived to be a winner and a loser and whatever. Education, everybody wins. And I had this very close relationship with Paulo Renato, the Secretary of Brazil, and Cardoso, their president, and they really appreciated that, and I'm telling you, it helped us, our two governments, working together. So I really felt like that was very important.
What's really remarkable is he, the Minister of Education in Brazil, Paulo Renato, and Robert Rubin, U.S. Treasury Secretary, they were here to begin the first day of the Institute.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah. Applause. Well, Dick, you know, I've always thought you only had one shortcoming, and that is you're a Methodist and not a Presbyterian. But you are a Methodist from South Carolina, and you might, everyone in the audience probably recognizes that in American Irish politics, that is pretty much the province of Catholics from the big northeastern states, like Boston and New York and other places. But following this same theme, while Dick was secretary, he played a leading role, believe it or not, in the Irish peace accords with President Clinton. And can you tell us a little bit about your involvement in that very historic period of Irish history?
Yeah, I'm very pleased to. Of course, I'm Irish. I have fond memories of all of that. That was, any of you that kept up with it, I know most of you did. It was the harshest, meanest competition between Catholics and Protestants in Northern Ireland. And I mean, it was war, real wartime, killing each other right and left. And Clinton got in there and really got them talking, and it was very good. I wanted to do something with young people there, because we knew the older people, I mean, they were fixed, but younger people weren't all that hostile. So we started what we call civic links. And in that, we'd get a Protestant high school and a Catholic high school, and they would get a committee, like 20 people from each side. They would form a committee that was bipartisan, and they would solve issues. They would deal with a polluted stream or drugs in the school or whatever. And then they would come and meet and solve the problem, meet before the council or whatever, and it was Protestants and Catholics working together. And we were in some 60 schools in Northern Ireland and the borderline in the South. And I really think all of these things, of course, a lot of things, a lot of people do. Bill Clinton did a great job with Ireland. They love him over there. But that was one of the many things that this country was involved in helping put that together. And that's in a mess in the Brexit deal, as you well know.
You want to try?
Where are we,
got time for
Jackie? One more story? One more story, okay. Now, so we've been talking about EIA here, the whole country. We've been in Ireland, talked a little, we didn't hit China too hard. We could have gone there, but also the secretary went with the president to a big international meeting in Santiago, Chile, called APEC. And there's some Furman students going to the APEC meeting soon, so it's really an interesting connection. And while there, Herbie Hancock, a great American jazz player, performed. And Dick and Tunky went to the performance, and an interesting introduction happened. You might want to share a little bit.
Well, we were meeting, the secretaries of about 15 countries were meeting all day long. And of course, the presidents and all were meeting in other places. And I was worn out. We started working like 7 o'clock in the morning. This was about 6 o'clock when we were finished. And our spouses were there, and so Tunky was there, and we got together, and they said, Mr. Secretary, I know you all are tired, but I just want you to know the big hall is connected, and it said there's close to 15,000 people in there, so there's a real giant crowd, and Herbie Hancock is performing. And Herbie Hancock, of course, a jazz pianist, and was very popular here, but real popular in Chile. And like the 20, 30-year-olds were just loaded that place up. So we have 2 seats for you in this rally. So we went over and sat down, and then somebody handed Herbie a note, and the note said, U.S. Secretary of Education is here. And then on another subject, it said, Ms. Riley is a great supporter of music education. Well, Herbie thought that the Secretary of Education was Ms. Riley. He didn't know that was 2 different subjects. So we're sitting there, and all these people, and I'm worn out, and Herbie, cool as he is, walked out with his microphone, walking around. He said, boy, we lucky tonight. He said, we got the Secretary of Education here of the United States of America, and I love her. Mrs. Riley has been secretary for a number. I'm sitting there, and Tunky's sitting there, and we said, you know, what in the devil are we going to do? We don't know the language, we don't know whatever. So he went on and on about how Ms. Riley was a great Secretary of Education, and said, I want her to stand and be recognized. Well, Tunky was kind of a shy person. She was not the person to do it. So she was trying to decide what to do, and she said, well, I'm going to stand up. And I said, go ahead. She stood up. And not only did she stand up, she turned around and waved at the crowd. And they went wild. I mean, the whole crowd thought that was super, and I was humiliated about that. So I said, to keep from being fraudulent, I think I at least need to stand up. So I stood up, and then Herbie walks over on the edge of the stage, and he said, and doesn't the secretary have great support? That's the end of my story.
Well, Well, as a lot of you can imagine, with that lead up, I'm going to say, well, Dick, you have a lot of support here too. And it's been a real pleasure to have this conversation. Now, afterwards, there's a barbecue where there'll be beer. And after these two drink beer, they tell even better stories. So go talk to them then. So let's give them a round of applause. Well, in addition to getting to ask questions and not having to answer them, I have a double honor, and that is the opportunity to introduce to you a very good friend, a very, very good friend of Dick Riley. When Dick Riley was governor, he represented as a constituent David Wilkins. And when Dick Riley was governor, David Wilkins represented Dick Riley as a constituent. Dick Riley was a resident of his district. Their relationship goes back further than that. His father and Dick's father were very good friends, and today they are both colleagues at the Nelson, Mullins, Riley, Scarborough law firm. I don't have to tell this crowd this, but I have to point it out, is that David Wilkins served as our state's Speaker of the House for 11 years, which is a very difficult position to obtain and perhaps as hard a one to hold. He served as our country's ambassador to Canada with great distinction. And to top it all off, the Riley Institute has named its top award for legislative and public service leadership in honor of David Wilkins. So it's an honor for me to introduce him to you tonight.
Well, thank you very much, Frank, for those very kind remarks. It's a great privilege to celebrate this landmark anniversary with all of you. Dick Riley has had such a tremendous impact on our state and our nation for so many years. As some of you may know, Dick Riley and I go back a long, long way. Both of us born here in Greenville, raised in Greenville, attended the public schools in Greenville County, as did our children. And my first political experience was as a page for then Senator Dick Riley when I was in law school. When I first started serving in the South Carolina House, as Frank's already alluded to, my best known constituent in House District 24 was then Governor Dick Riley. I never could get him to put up a yard sign, Wilkins for House, in his yard when he was governor, but he never put one up for my opponent either. And not long after Dick Riley was appointed Secretary of Education, I was elected Speaker of the South Carolina House. And our working together for the past 10 years, being proud partners of the firm that bears his name, Nelson, Mullins, Riley, and Scarborough, our working together for the past 10 years in our firm's Greenville office represents a family reunion of sorts, because some 75 years ago, his father and mine, Mr. Ted, shared a one-room office in Greenville when they both started their law firms. Now, they weren't members of the same firm. They had their own firm, but they had only one office. And this one-room office, a client would come in to see Mr. Ted, and my dad would get up and draw a curtain across the center of the room so the client wouldn't see the other lawyer, who obviously was sitting there listening to every word he said. So Dick and I share a lot in common. A love for our hometown, our state, the law. We both love politics, though not the same political party. We also share the same barber, one who, fortunately for him, doesn't rely on our business very much. And while Dick's a lifelong Democrat and I'm a lifelong Republican, we have shared a friendship and a respect for each other that has always transcended party lines. As a freshman House Republican, as Governor Riley just alluded to, I was proud to vote for his landmark EIA legislation. It was pretty simple. He believed in it, and I believed in him. And over the years, you find Dick Riley surrounded by folks that believe in him because he's earned their trust. And when the name Dick Riley comes up in conversation, you hear words like integrity, character, commitment, class, civility, decency, humility. And I know I'm one of just many proud folks to call Dick Riley my friend. And that's why 14 years ago, when Furman University, under the auspices of the university's Riley Institute, suggested that they would like to hold an annual dinner in my name, I was honored to participate. And since 2006, the Riley Institute Wilkins Award Dinner has been a joy-filled evening marking the start of the legislative session each January to honor and recognize excellence in legislative and civic leadership. It's been a privilege to work with my friend Dick Riley on this dinner for many years, and I think we've made a pretty terrific team. And every year, as I'm preparing for the dinner, I think about his dad and mine. It's been 3/4 of a century now since the curtain separated their work in that small one-room law office in the 1940s. For their sons, Dick and myself, our differing political views sometimes separate us. But like our fathers before us, we find a way to work together, drawing back that curtain and united on things that really matter. Hopefully, we set a good example. I'm confident of the impact of the Wilkins Award Dinner has made on the South Carolina political and civic landscape because it is forever tied to the Riley Institute and the vital work of Dick Riley. I can't think of a longer lasting, richer legacy in which forever to be associated. So to all of you at Furman University, at the Riley Institute, and especially to our friend Dick Riley, congratulations on 2 decades of the Riley Institute and laying the foundation for future great works. May God richly bless all of your endeavors for the next 20 years. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to invite Judith Winston to the podium. Judy has worn several hats in her career, many at the same time. While the Chief General Counsel for the U.S. Department of Education under Secretary Riley's administration, Judy also served as the Undersecretary of the Department, and she also at the same time was detailed to the White House to lead President Clinton's Commission on One America, commonly known as the Race Commission. Judy is a top-notch lawyer, a dedicated and very effective public servant, a stellar individual personally and professionally. Please join me in welcoming Judy Winston.
Thank you. Good evening. First, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Furman University for having the foresight to establish the Riley Institute over 20 years ago. Its devotion to fostering leadership and diverse and bipartisan perspectives aimed at devising sustainable solutions to the challenges we face locally, statewide, and in the nation is an invaluable resource, especially in these fractious times in which we live. I also want to thank the university, the institute, and all those involved in planning this celebration, especially Sandy Rink, for providing me with this opportunity both to honor Dick Riley and to thank him for being one of the most inspirational and extraordinary leaders I have ever had the pleasure to work with and to know. Now, many of us here count Dick Riley as one of our favorite people. We all have reasons for saying that. Let me share a few of mine. I'm going to start with sharing a brief story. Early in my tenure as general counsel at the department, I was invited to debate a former Bush administration assistant secretary for civil rights on a TV show moderated by the then former governor of New Hampshire, John Sununu. It was one of those point-counterpoint formats. The subject was affirmative action. And when I appeared on that show, I was figuratively punching and jabbing and poo-pooing everything that the other side was saying. I thought I had scored a knockout. A day or so later, when I asked Secretary Riley if he had seen the show, he said yes, he had. And when pressed a bit, he said, I did a pretty good job, an okay job. This was not a ringing endorsement, to say the least. I was a bit disappointed, but as I thought about it later, I realized that I had lost an opportunity on that show. If I had taken the Dick Riley way of engaging my opponent, it might have been a win-win situation for all of us. Dick Riley demonstrated throughout the time he was secretary that he believes in building bridges and forging partnerships. He always studied and listened to every side of the issue, and neither I nor any member of my staff felt defeated in his company, even if his decision did not go the way we wanted. Indeed, Secretary Riley remains the all-time favorite secretary of the U.S. Department of Education, not only among the political appointees that worked with him during the Clinton administration, but also among the career staff who had worked there over many administrations. I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm frequently asked to attend a retirement party or two or other types of celebrations hosted by career staff who are still there at the department. Even today, a number of the career staff in my former office enjoy telling me the story of how warm and welcoming they found Dick Riley when he first became secretary. They share stories of chance encounters with him somewhere in the building we used to call FOB 6, which is now the Lyndon Baines Johnson Federal Building. He would always greet them with a hello, how are you doing? Some were simply amazed that they could actually ride in the same elevator with him. It seems that some former secretaries and their bodyguards refused to let anyone else on the elevator with their secretary. But our secretary would stretch out his arms and say, come on in, bud. I also need to say a few words about the values and principles exhibited by Secretary Riley during the period I had to observe him and them in action. In addition to being warm and welcoming, Secretary Riley has an ethical code that is beyond reproach. And you've heard much of that already from all of those who've spoken before me. The chief ethics officer for the entire department was housed in my office, the Office of the General Counsel. He was a stellar and highly respected career civil servant of many decades. He had served every single Secretary of Education and even some of the commissioners of education before the department was established. He often remarked that Secretary Riley was the most ethical ever. Before taking office, Secretary Riley sold all of his individual stocks and put them into mutual funds so he would have no connection with or control over the individual holdings. That cost him financially, but he didn't care about that. What he did care about was not having even the appearance of a conflict of interest. He felt that such an appearance might have a negative impact on the education improvements he was trying to bring about for our nation's children. For Secretary Riley, it was always about what's best for the children. Secretary Riley sought advice from our ethics officer on everything he did, officially and personally, to make sure he stayed on the right side of the ethics laws and regulations governing federal employees. Now, I have to admit, some of those regulations were quite illogical. Many were inconvenient, but Secretary Riley was insistent that he and all of his appointees stay out of the gray areas and follow the guidelines of the department's ethics officer. He was also a great mentor to many of us at the department. On a number of occasions, he made sure I didn't put my foot in my mouth. I remember that on one occasion, when we were going to meet with several distinguished and high-level officials from the Catholic Archdiocese about some very sensitive issues involving federal funds and Catholic schools, on the way to the meeting, we were talking casually, and he asked me whether I had a religious affiliation. And I indicated that I had been raised a Catholic, but over the years I had become a lapsed Catholic and later joined the Episcopal Church when I married. He responded in a very gentle way, "Judy, I think it would be better that you not mention any of that at the meeting." Dick Riley was the first person I ever heard utter the phrase, "Education is a civil right." Nobody believes more than he that every child deserves a high-quality education. Every day during his tenure at the Department of Education, and thereafter as well, he has thought about and worked hard to make schools, colleges, and universities better places for the students enrolled in them, regardless of who they were or their family's status. Through the sheer force of his leadership, he has identified and helped to implement the real long-term solutions that are urgently needed to improve our public and elementary and secondary schools, our colleges and universities, especially those that enroll large numbers of poor students and students of color. I feel confident that no one here wonders why Dick Riley has been called one of the great statesmen of education in this century and one of the most decent and honorable people in public life. It is an honor to know him. Congratulations and thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jackie Martin, and I work with the Riley Institute, and so proud to be here. I once said, unfortunately, to a reporter, and it was put in print, that Dick Riley is the only man that I ever met that inspired in me the impulse to curtsy. And I recently at a party, I relayed this story to Dick Riley, and he said, "Okay then, just get it over with." So I gave him one of these. Everybody has great things to say about Dick Riley. And not so long ago in 2014, we were honored to have a visit from President Bill Clinton here in Greenville. We put the tickets on sale at the Peace Center. I think it sold out in half a day, and it was so amazing an evening. We were so proud to be there. We have a few words from President Clinton from that night, and we wanted to share those with you in this video clip.
He always knew things
that the rest of us had to learn by messing up. His instinctive, intuitive understanding of human nature and human possibilities and what would work always took my breath away. And I was thrilled when he agreed to be Secretary of Education for 8 years. I was thrilled when Time Magazine finally recognized him for his outstanding performance, because all those things he told you we did when he was there, nearly no Americans know them. You know why? Because Dick just did it. And when you live in Washington, you don't get any publicity unless there's blood on the floor. And he got along with everybody. He got the Republicans to help him along with the Democrats. And he just said, let's just do this. This is good for the kids. This is good for the future. This is right for the country. We need to get back to the point where we elevate that. And so, that's why I love him. That's why I'm honored to be here. This is way bigger than Dick Riley or me or anybody else. This is about whether America will organize itself to make the most of this new century. No other nation is better suited to it. No other country should make more of it. But if we're going to do it, we'll have to do it through being creative with cooperation, not stubborn in conflict. That's what the Riley Institute is a testament to, and I'm grateful to all of you for supporting it. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Your program lists me as former president, and that reminds me of one of my favorite New Yorker cartoons. It shows a little boy about 6 years old, and he's looking up at a very tall father, and he said, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to be a former president." When Jackie and Jill asked me to participate in this anniversary celebration, they told me I could talk about anything I wanted to as long as I kept it short. Their passion for brevity puts them in distinguished company. In 1876, a renowned Scottish minister was invited to preach before Queen Victoria, and he was sternly warned beforehand that Her Majesty preferred short sermons. At the end of the church service, the Queen told the minister, "Sir, you were brief." He responded, "Aye, Your Majesty, I never want to be tedious." She tersely replied, "You were also tedious." Indeed, length has nothing to do with tedium, as you are about to experience. Truth be told, I very much admire succinct expression in others. Last year, for instance, I taught a writing seminar for first-year Furman students. During the 5th week of the semester, we were focusing on short stories. So on Wednesday morning, I walked in and I said, "Take everything off your desk except for one sheet of paper and a pen or a pencil. We're going to have a contest." And the contest, I explained, was to write the shortest short story that includes the following 4 elements: royalty, religion, sex, and mystery. Have you got that? Royalty, religion, sex, and mystery. The students busily started scribbling, and after 15 minutes, I took them up and I shuffled through them and I said, "We have a winner." And the winning entry read, "My God," said the Queen, "I'm pregnant. I wonder who did it." That student is now a member of the Riley Institute Advanced Team. Let me now risk seriousness for a few moments to honor a special man and the much celebrated program that he inspired. In this beautiful setting, rich with history and alive with possibility, I'm grateful to have this luxury, the gift of grace, really, to be here with you wonderful supporters, blessed with the rare opportunity to honor someone and something of enduring excellence. For the Riley Institute has become a unique academic outreach program that is making a huge difference. Its benefits will outlive us all. My story begins with the best decision I made as Furman's president. A little over 20 years ago, we were beginning the process of crafting a new strategic plan for the university. We knew we wanted to deepen Furman's involvement in Greenville and to expand our commitment to engaged learning by offering more enriching experiential learning opportunities for our students across the state and indeed around the world. But we had yet to fasten on a signature program to make that happen. Then, as if by magic, the forever young Don Gordon appeared in my office with a bold proposition. He wanted to draw upon the national prestige of alumnus Dick Riley to create a nonpartisan, multidisciplinary public policy program that would address the university's primary strategic goals: engaged learning opportunities for our students, progressive outreach programs for the state, and mundane commuting trips for Don Gordon, who had 4 homes scattered across the state, one of which was a mobile home. I told Don I was intrigued by the idea of naming the new program in honor of Dick, for I had come to adore the man and knew how much he loved Furman and his home state. I also reminded Don that my recurring presidential refrain was that Furman is a private university with a very public sense of mission. But I explained I needed some time to think about his audacious proposal and how we would fund it. As I opened the door for him to depart, however, he did not budge from his chair. He said he would await my answer with me. 2 hours later, not having exchanged another word, I looked up from my desk at a still waiting Don and said, "You are now the director of the Riley Institute." The rest, as they say, is history. From its inauspicious beginning with 2 staff members, the Institute has blossomed into the university's most visible academic program, with 3 robust centers under its umbrella and seemingly limitless numbers of staff members, programs, and devoted alumni and donors. In the process of such dramatic expansion, the Riley Institute has spread the Furman brand across the nation, and it has enhanced the quality of civic leadership on this campus, in the Greenville community, and across the state. For university programs to be truly sustainable, however, they need to be endowed, and it remains my earnest hope that the Riley Institute will soon reach that level of support with the help of us all. Certainly, Dick Riley has endowed the Institute with his energy and integrity. Like the reedy river that graces his hometown, Dick has repeatedly displayed the indefinable power of drawing attention without courting it, the faculty of exciting interest by his very presence, and his engaging way of getting things done. For all who know him, he remains one of the few upright figures in an era of political corrosion and corruption. Now, I wasn't going to mention this until Dick mentioned it earlier. You may not know that the Oscar-winning actress Joanne Woodward was a schoolmate of Dick's at Greenville High. and she later reported that Dick Riley was widely known as the best dancer in Greenville. She very much wanted to marry him, despite his being 3 years younger. But Woodward confessed that she was so intimidated by his dancing prowess that she never revealed her strong feelings for him. So she settled for Paul Newman. We, however, have been married to Dick's statesmanship for decades. Like an ultimatum, Dick Riley has inspired generations with his example, showing us what it means to be loving in the face of hate, hopeful in times of despair, and generous to those in need. For this and for so much more, we honor and thank him and will forever love him. Yet Dick would be the first to agree that the prime mover behind the Riley Institute is the man who has devoted 20 years of his personal and professional life to the program he envisioned and has long nurtured. Please join me in applauding the extraordinary efforts of our Don Gordon.
So David was wrong. It was 3 hours, and we sold a mobile home. You know, David, thank you so much. I really appreciate those remarks. We've actually been blessed with some incredible presidents at Furman, and 3 of them are here tonight. You've heard from David. And you know that David understood very early the value of engaged learning and the value of deepening university commitments to being involved with the greater community here in Greenville, but across the state and across the region. And he put that prescient strategy into place, and we love him for that. And then Carl Court, who stepped in as interim president and did an excellent job during that period of time, and now Elizabeth Davis. And Elizabeth Davis has done something that I just really love. She has created a vision for the future of Furman that I think is absolutely incredible, and that is the Furman Advantage. It's comprehensive. It actually energizes this campus in ways that I haven't seen in a long time. It's attracted national accolades and national attention. As you probably saw in the U.S. News and World Report, reports that Furman was 5th in terms of innovation, and obviously it was this particular thing, the Furman Advantage, that Elizabeth Davis has promulgated that moved us that way. So I think that it has created something that people understand, that you can take a superior liberal arts education and it remains highly relevant in a rapidly evolving economic and social context. And I want to applaud our 3 presidents who I just think we've been lucky to have. So what an evening this is for all of us who love Dick Riley and who work to advance his principles, his very clear and unfailing sense of what is right and what is wrong, and his convictions about what has to happen to move the state forward and to make this country a better place. Dick Riley's past, his present, and future, they live on in this institute, the Riley Institute at Furman University. It exists to help continue his work, and we could not be prouder of the man that we call our Chief Inspiration Officer. He is that. You know, I loved hearing David Chai speak tonight about the origins of the Riley Institute. There are other versions of that. I very vividly recall some of those early conversations about what we could do and how we could do it. And I really clearly recall Dick Riley saying, and I want, Secretary, forgive me for this attempt at your accent here, but Don, we got to bring everybody together in this thing. I'm not good at that, but he is. We can't leave out women in our state. We can't leave out the people of color in our state. We can't just have white men in this state running everything if we're going to hope to get ahead. He said we need everybody in both parties across ideological lines. We need everybody in the state working together in one South Carolina. And that's what our work is. The Riley Institute's work is all about. Our public education work, our considerable presence in diversity leadership, and the work we do to put a variety of perspectives and real unbiased information into the public dialogue. It all flows, as I think you know, from the principal leadership of Dick Riley. And it all plays an integral part in the role in the Furman advantage for our students. And it is impacting our students here at Furman and people in communities across the state. So, as much as I like talking about the Riley Institute's work and our 41 different programs across the state, we thought that rather than having us do it, we would ask some of the people we've worked with over time to let us know how the work has impacted them and the greater communities, about their experience with the Riley Institute. And I think many of you who left such comments on the registration form in this event, we really appreciate that. So I want to hear from a few of you, former and current students, graduates of our Diversity Leadership Initiative, community members who've come to our speaking events, people we've worked with to advance public education in this state, people we've worked with on our research teams, and more. So please join me in watching this video.
And then I met with Brooke, and she talked about opportunities that they had during the summer for internships. And it was about education, and I knew that I loved education and had a passion for students. I was curious as to what avenue I wanted to serve within education. I knew that being an educator was something that I was interested in, but I didn't want to teach. And the research helped me recognize that I don't want to do it through research, but public policy may be something that I'm interested in. And taking the research that our researchers are doing and then using that to construct my arguments.
So it was important to Secretary Riley. It's been important to me as the coordinator of the Teachers of Government program that we create an experience, a professional development experience for teachers in South Carolina that reflects the respect that Secretary Riley and all of us in the Institute have for teachers. We think that they are the front line for making our democracy work effectively.
We currently serve 10 communities in South Carolina. We have 10 schools. And the outcomes could not be more satisfying to, I think, all of us. It is clear that our partnership has changed the trajectory of students.
At Community Works, we were celebrating 10 years of great work and tremendous impact in the community. And we were also working on our third strategic plan for the organization. So that's when we learned about the work that the Riley Institute does through their planning and evaluation team. And essentially what we did was what we call the meta-organizational logic model. And basically that was a very extensive, deep dive look at the work we're doing through our programs and services and making sure that they align with our mission.
A Riley Fellow approached me back in 2010 about this idea of mentoring on bikes. Part of the mission of Momentum is to teach them to build resilience, that we can't take their challenges away, but that they have it within them to overcome their challenges and to be stronger.
I look forward to the Straight Talk series every year because I know there's going to be a timely topic and that the series attracts experts in that area, people we wouldn't normally have access to except maybe through the media, and yet here we are seeing them live. It makes me realize that I have an obligation to learn more, to search, to investigate, to think outside my comfort zone and to examine other points of view before I reach my own particular viewpoint or decision on a topic.
Well, the Wilkins Award has become a wonderful event that is on the first night of the legislative session, and that in itself is an important position to be in because it sets the tone for working together and in bipartisan manner. I believe the Institute has filled a void in our state of convening statewide leaders around large conversations that we might not have otherwise.
I knew majoring in political science that I didn't necessarily want to go into politics. I had that law school as my dream, but I still wanted the exposure and I still wanted to learn as much as I could about the real world issues that were going on. So being involved with the advanced team and getting to go to APEC and meet these wonderful speakers that came on campus, former President Bill Clinton, was really eye-opening to me.
I think it's important for us to see that Furman students are engaged and interested, and I think it's important for them to realize that even though we're older and we're retired and our careers have probably ended, that we're still vibrant and we're still interested and we still want to learn and grow.
I think it has had a wonderful impact on just reminding us of being better stateswomen and better statesmen and how to work together for the good of South Carolina.
The Riley Institute, what it means to me is just what Secretary Riley stands for. It's an opportunity for people to come together and learn in an atmosphere that is not politically charged.
There's so many projects touching so many parts of the upstate and across South Carolina that are supporting people, lifting boats, encouraging people, giving opportunities. It's quite a humbling thing to be part of the capstone projects of the Diversity Leaders Initiative.
I think we really streamlined our focus, which really helps us be more laser focused, more focused on the things that we do well and how we can best have an impact in the community.
We put students on a path to prosperity, and I can't think of a more important legacy to leave in the state than that.
There was so much excitement around the idea of the Riley Institute when I arrived, and it was one of the things that made me interested to take the job. The high level of esteem within which Dick Riley was held in the political world and in the state of South Carolina just made me recognize that an institute in his name would be a huge boon for the department and for the university.
Whether it be Brooke or Lolly or Sally, it doesn't matter who it is. I can always meet with them. I can always get assistance from them, and they want to see me thrive and do well. And so my Riley experience has been a gift.
If you saw me up here, you saw me smiling. I absolutely love that video. And I'm reminded by this video that I look around this room. The Riley Institute is, at its very foundation, about people and about relationships. And so many of you here tonight, certainly David and Carl and Elizabeth and Ken Peterson, and so many others from Furman's current and past senior leadership. Sandy Rink, who from the wilds of Washington makes both our Teachers of Government program work and Dick Riley possible many times. And Terry Peterson, who you've seen, who's been Dick's education advisor for, I think it was 40 years rather than 50, wasn't it, Terry? Terry, of course, was instrumental in launching our White Riley Peterson National Policy Fellowship and our work with New Tech Network. There are folks here from some of our invaluable local foundations, and we appreciate them so much. Each of them were instrumental in the launch of a major Riley Institute program. And from the Duke Endowment, who generously has supported the Riley Institute over the years, and we appreciate that. There are faculty members from my department, the Politics and International Affairs, who really helped create the outlines of the Riley Institute some 20 years ago and remain very engaged in it. over time. And faculty members from across this campus, from many departments of education and sociology and economics, philosophy, psychology, history, music, communications, and other departments. And we love working with them. And Furman leadership and staff from many areas across Furman. Without them, we simply could not do our work. We could not do it, and we appreciate that, and we love these people that we've worked with over time. With us tonight, too, are many community and corporate leaders who've helped shape and launch signature Riley Institute programs. I think we've talked already tonight about the Wilkins Excellence in Legislative and Civic Leadership Awards dinner, an incredible experience for so many people. And the South Carolina Diversity Leaders Initiative. And here I'm going to point to Juan Johnson and the late Calder Ehrman, without whom the Diversity Leaders Initiative would not exist. And Calder lives on with it through his family and the many legacies of his work. And the many Furman board members who could be counted on to support our work over the past 20 years. So many people who've graduated from our Diversity Leaders Initiative, over 2,200 across the state of South Carolina. And this have become Riley Fellows who have put into place over 250 capstone and civic action programs. The collective impact of that across the state is enormous. But finally, let me talk a minute about the Riley Institute staff. And I'd like all of you, even those of you in the back, to stand up. And folks, please look at the Riley Institute staff. Wherever you are, please stand up. Jackie, Jill, all of you. So I'm warned very specifically by Jackie, who's got this card that tells you got 10 seconds left, and Jill, who will scowl at me, that I have to be brief in my remarks. And that's really, really very difficult for me to do. It's hard to keep these remarks brief for this team of people that I love so much, because they are truly a phenomenal group of very talented and extremely passionate people about their work. They're the people who make things go for the Riley Institute at a level of quality and a precision that simply amazes me. And they do so because of an incredible commitment to the parts to the missions of this institute and to this university. And they do it because they have strong ownership of their own programs, which they're in charge. And they have a passion for making things better for people across the state. And they do this so well because they have developed a culture of cooperation and collaboration and of celebration of successes of their colleagues in the Riley Institute and across the campus and the other institutes and the other departments, celebrating them. These are truly selfless people. I think you can tell I'm extremely proud of them. And I would love you to join me again in applauding this remarkable Team Riley. "20 years, coin a phrase, my goodness, how time does fly. I can't believe my own good fortune in standing here with all of you, all these people that we've worked with over the years, or the past 20 years, who've had such an impact on our existence and on our successes. If indeed Furman University's Riley Institute has become the preeminent policy institute in the state, it's because all of you. We do the work for you, with you. You make the work possible. We pledge to you. We pledge to continue to grow the work, to continue to provide the high value experiences for Furman students, and to advance progress in the state, and to always keep our eyes on the true north of the work and principles of Dick Riley. Two things, folks, before we close this down, okay? In just a moment, I look forward to seeing most of you in the backyard party we got out back here. Food and drink going to be fantastic. I tell you that as former director of a fraternity's social committee. This is going to be good. And we got Mac Arnold, a national treasure musician, who's our party band. You're going to enjoy this, and he's going to rock the Cherrydale lawn in just a minute. But before then, let me invite Dr. Susan Shy up, who will close us out with a very special presentation. Susan Shy, of course, is a former First Lady of Furman, longtime friend of Dick Riley's, amazing community leader in her own right, and a member of Furman University's Board of Trustees. Please welcome Dr. Susan Shy.
We want you right up here. Ooh, don't fall off the back. Well, he and I are the only things between you and all that's out back, so I will be brief. And I know you're wondering why I'm on this stage and why I hauled you up here with me, so I'm just going to tell you. And I will begin this story. Well, actually, it all began downtown. And it began with the planning, creating, and placing of the fabulous sculpture of Secretary Riley on the plaza in front of the Peace Center. Many thanks to Zan Wells for crafting such a splendid work of art, and thanks to Megan Regal for suggesting and making available the perfect location. And thanks to Dick's friends for funding the project. Lots of you all are here tonight. This downtown sculpture honors Greenville native Richard W. Riley for his commitment to providing a quality education for all children in our nation and certainly in our state. Well, as we awaited installation day of the sculpture downtown, Zan pulled me aside and suggested that Furman's campus might need something to honor the life and work of our dear friend Richard Riley. And as we've heard this evening, Dick has worked tirelessly to build a better South Carolina and to build a better Furman. Much of this work has occurred during the past 20 years through his efforts on behalf of his beloved Riley Institute. And much of this work has occurred as a dedicated member of Furman's Board of Trustees. Dick loves Furman, and we are so lucky. So tonight, we want to commemorate that love and his relentless efforts. I hear the music.
Come on.
And his relentless efforts to make this world a better place for us all. And so we have a surprise for Dick. Now, to manufacture this surprise, Dick's dine-around buddies, would you all please stand? I will not take the time to define this group, but we decided to take Zan's suggestion of having visual representation of Dick on campus. We decided to take that suggestion and make it happen. Well, we first contacted folks at Furman and the Riley Institute to see if they would be interested in our idea, and they were. Zan happily agreed to use her original sculpture of Dick to create a bust. The Dine Around group cheerfully funded the project. And Furman's talented carpentry shop, led by Wayne Merrill, created a pedestal using oak from a tree that had to be removed from the mall. Now, could there be a better time to present this bust of Dick Riley to him and to Furman and to the Riley Institute than now? Now, while we are all gathered to celebrate 20 years of the Riley Institute's impact across South Carolina, this is the time, and there it is. I have one more thing to say. Dick Riley, you have done so much for our nation and our state and our university. The institute which bears your name is continuing that work to build a better South Carolina. It's doing so to create better educational opportunities for students and to build statewide leadership that honors and leverages diversity among students and community leaders. Your principled leadership is an inspiration to all of us in this room. We and Furman University celebrate you. Your bust will be located in Johns Hall, where we hope it will inspire faculty, students, and visitors who will see it every day as they travel in and out of the Riley Institute and as they come to study politics and international affairs. We love you. What's in here? You need
No. Well, I am surprised. I'll have to admit that. That's a great surprise, and I do appreciate it. And Susan, thank you, and thank all my friends and all, but that's special. Now, I really don't know whether to dance or curtsy. But everybody has certain strong points, I'm sure. We've talked too much about Dick Riley here today. We really are talking about the Riley Institute. And the Riley Institute is, I was involved in leading it, and Don was, and David, and a number of others, faculty members or whatever. But the Riley Institute is you all, and it's the staff, it's the people who are there every day, and it's the students who are participating, and it's our great president, who's been a great supporter, and the Furman Advantage is very much in line with where we're interested. But I thank all of you for that. That means an awful lot to me. Thank you for the presentation, and Don for your comments. David, what a nice statement you made, and I appreciate that. I think you might have mentioned our fathers were graduates of the Furman Law School. And there weren't many people. The Depression then ended that law school, but they were great friends along. And Judy, thank you so much for coming, and it was a great honor working with you, and I appreciate so much what you had to say. And David, you too. I figured you'd cite some historic moment to get into your story, but you did. A real history major. But anyhow, thank you all, and I appreciate the people. Sandy, make sure I notify these people and thank them. But the evening is great. That is over the top. I just really had no idea about that. Anyhow, the wonderful programs we have here mean a lot. I know it's time to go have the party we're talking about. But I thank my law firm, Nelson Mullins, Riley and Scarborough, that has let me spend so much time with the Riley Institute, and Frank and Terry were so helpful all along, all through the years. I appreciate them and letting me continue in this work with public service. I thank my family. Tunky was always a great supporter. Tunky died, as you know, in 2008. And Betty Farr's husband died around that same time. We both had been married over 50 years. And so we have been very serious friends ever for about close to 10 years. But I had, Betty was kind of in ill health today, and we both had some problems health-wise. But they thought she was worse off than I was, so she had some real physical treatment, and she's back home now, and she's perfectly fine, and I want you to know for that. So when I called and told her, I said, she said, I think I'm going. I said, no, you cannot go. You just got out of the hospital. But anyhow, she said, please, get your hair cut before you go. Anybody that knows Betty understands that, I'm sure. Then after that, I told her I couldn't possibly do it. She said, well, what are you going to wear? I said, that really is not terribly important. This is a very serious deal. Anyhow, I'll tell Betty we're all thinking about her, and she's been a great partner of mine and a great supporter of the Riley Institute. she has these wonderful parties at Christmas for all the staff and whatever, and that's very helpful. So I thank all of the folks here tonight. I think so many things, but Furman means a lot to me, and it always has, and it always will. I want to finish with a statement that I think is very good of Benjamin Mays. Benjamin Mays is a wonderful friend of mine. He's deceased now, of course, but he was Martin Luther King's right-hand person in his very small group. African-American, had the first African-American portrait put up in the state legislature. I was involved in that, as many, many others were. But he's a wonderful guy. Grew up in Greenwood, and he had a lot of great quotes that I think are wonderful. His quote that I want to leave with you today, because I know we got to move on, he said this: it isn't a calamity to die with dreams unfulfilled, but it is a calamity not to dream. It isn't a calamity to die with dreams unfulfilled, but it is a calamity not to dream. So it's my hope, as I thank all of you all and all of you for being here. What a lovely event this has been. Don, your staff, Don was the leader of this. No question about that. He has been the leader all the way through, and we all recognize that. Anything you say about the Riley Institute, you're saying about Don Gordon. And he's my great friend. We have followed each other through thick and thin. But Don, thank you, and all of our other people who are recognized. But it's my hope that our young people will be able to dream good thoughts and to really possibly get involved in meaningful public service. That really is what the Riley Institute is all about. So I thank you all very much. It's a great honor for me, everything, all the different things, way too much, but I thank you all, even though. And let's go to the party. Thank you.